Back to
Okay.
page 4, I think this starts on page 473. The first category of public improvement bonds, you go to the first subtotal, and you can see that's for the Board of Education. So of that, roughly 313 million, 25.6 million, it was issued in general obligation debt for Board of Education. The next subtotal will give you the College of Southern Maryland amount that's outstanding at the end. That will be at the end of FY14 at June 30th of this year. The next category is called Public Safety. That can be a variety of things, including the Sheriff's Office, the Department of Emergency Services, things like that. On page 474, we have a category called General Government. That typically is all other things like libraries and government buildings and things like that. The next category is Roads. And then we have we add all those subtotals up and we get a total general fund. That's what your general taxpayer is paying for in the amount of debt. We do have an FHA loan, which I believe was for some parks, if I'm not mistaken, way back in 1973. That was before my time. And then we do have some capital leases that we've talked about, and those capital leases are typically short-term in nature and usually only have basically a 5-year life to them. So we retire that debt in a 5-year period.
And so this is cars? You said?
Typically cars, sometimes large pieces of equipment. Occasionally it'll be computer systems, things that typically have at least a 5-year life to them. So then you get a grand total of general fund debt. And this is, again, general fund is your main taxpayer fund. Then we have what's on page 475, what's called the debt service fund. And the debt service fund is also comprised of many subtotal items. The first one being Civista. There was a bond issued back in 2004 for, I believe, an expansion on that. We have a CSM, and these, let me preface, the reason why these are in the debt service fund is because we have a dedicated revenue source coming from outside of the taxpayer or outside of the general fund budget. We usually have a note secured with the hospital to pay this debt back, or an account receivable or a note secured with the College of Southern Maryland to pay back for the St. Charles Children's Center, for example, in this particular debt.
Are these in that 2.2% that you mentioned earlier in the meeting?
I'd have to check on that, sir. I don't believe it is. But let me check on that. Let me write that down or else I'll forget.
These meaning just the Vista and College or all of
This
these?
debt service fund thing, see?
I want to say it's not because we have a dedicated revenue source for them, so it wouldn't.
Which ties in with the language in the charter.
Right.
And the state, yeah.
Okay, we also have the next category called excise tax, and just clarification, excise tax are issued for new school construction. And again, we have a dedicated excise tax revenue levy that we collect to pay for that debt. We have some debt outstanding with the nursing home, and then St. Charles companies, which again are secured by notes received. All these are secured by note receivable. And then finally, the Southern Maryland Sports and Entertainment Complex. That's basically the Blue Crab Stadium. So our total debt service fund debt is $70.6 million with, again, a dedicated revenue source for that.
Just a general question. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But Civista and the Blue Crabs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have a government-private partnership with them? I mean, how do we incur a debt related to Civista Hospital and Blue Crabs? I mean, did we put in infrastructure for the Blue Crab Stadium, or?
We actually own the Blue Crab
Oh,
Stadium.
you own it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay, I didn't know that. And
And
Civista Hospital?
Civista we used to own, right.
And we still paying off debt on it?
Well, we issue debt, let me put it this way, we issue debt in behalf of these organizations. Okay, so we were able to secure better interest rates on the debt.
Okay.
But they're paying us back for the debt service
Oh,
for
okay,
this
all
debt.
right.
So
Okay.
it's not coming out of our high.
Okay.
In other words. It's coming out of their high.
Okay.
Okay, the next category is inspection and review. That's an enterprise fund, and they're just a couple capital leases. Same with the solid waste fund, enterprise fund. The next page, 476, is again an enterprise fund, recreation fund, as well as the environmental service fund. That's the rain tax, commonly known as. Well, actually, it used to be. The rain tax is now called the Watershed Protection and Restoration Fund. So that's the next category. And then finally, probably our second largest one is, or third largest one is the water and sewer debt, which tends to be a fairly large operation. But that's also an enterprise fund. And these are the ones where we get into the double barrel type of bonds, where we're pledging the revenue from each of these enterprise fund operations, whether it's landfill revenue or the recreation fees or the water and sewer fees. We take that revenue, pledge it first against the debt, and then if we have to, in my time here, I don't ever recall having to make additional payments out of the general fund. We've always had enough enterprise fund revenue to pay for that debt. And then, so that gives you, I guess, what we issued the debt for.
Okay. And, okay, with regard to the percentage of the budget that goes towards debt maintenance, that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 6% plus a bit.
Well, I read that as a different question.
Oh,
Lynn.
okay.
I read it as budget toward debt maintenance. I thought you meant maintenance-related projects. But that's not, I misread that.
You meant service and maintenance.
I meant it as paying your monthly
Gotcha.
mortgage.
Yes, we did answer that.
Okay.
So, how many enterprise funds are there?
I think we have five enterprise funds.
They're
Maybe
just
6
these-
with our new watershed fund, though.
So the enterprise funds are what's right here,
Yes.
and that's it, that's the extent of it.
I think it's 8.
Well, I'm counting the inspection review fund as 1, the solid waste is 2, recreation 3, ESF and environmental service is 4, and the watershed 5, and water and sewer 6. The
Yeah.
watershed protection is a new one.
I see on here, vending machine. Is that considered one too?
Vending machine is, I believe it's a special revenue fund, is that an enterprise
Yeah,
fund?
it's under, enterprise funds, vending machine, and tourism.
Oh,
concert.
okay.
Tourism
Yes.
concert.
Oh, excellent, you're looking at your reference material.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
So what, you taking the change out of the vending machines?
Well, it grossed $104,000.
Well, just define enterprise, because it's, in my mind, what the enterprise thing is, this is not it, so.
Well, the name enterprise fund comes from, like a business enterprise, where we intend to operate it like a business. So we're going to set a user fee to recover the costs just for that operation. So for instance, the water and sewer fund, we set a water fee and a sewer fee to recover the cost of providing you water and treating your sewer. You're not paying for teacher salaries or sheriff salaries or my salary, for instance, with your user fee. Same for the landfill or select any of those other ones. So we set a fee to specifically recover the cost of the operation.
Okay.
And just, the water and sewer enterprise fund is about 26 million.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let me ask you, with regard to the idea that about a little over 6% of the annual budget goes towards paying debt. Can you explain page 478, where it says, are those the same numbers? Bonded debt as a percent of revenue? What does that mean?
Yes, those are the same numbers.
Okay.
This is,
So over the
Correct.
years, we've been basically between 7.2 at the high water mark and 5.4 at the low water mark, and right now we're sitting at, right now we're at 5.6.
correct,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And then, what's the county's bond rating?
We have